Nearly 50% of US marriages end in divorce. So that's why we're talking with a local attorney here today, Kayla Hathaway at Coronado Law, right behind me. We want to talk about a unique way to get separated, which is called a collaborative divorce. It can save you time, money, reduce stress, and protect your family's emotional well-being. Before we get going though, this video is for informational purposes only. This is not legal advice, and watch at your own risk. Real quick before we get going, my name is Chris Shores. My business partner Tim Loomis and I own White Whale Real Estate, a local real estate firm in the area. This is the original Living in New Smyrna Beach YouTube real estate channel. We're dubbing ourselves the NSB Weekly, where we bring to you all things local related in New Smyrna and Volusia County, hidden gems, interviews with local pros, and of course, real estate. So whether you already live in New Smyrna or you want to, this is the YouTube channel for you. Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow. All right, guys, so welcome to this week's video. We are talking to you about the big D. We don't mean Dallas. We're talking about divorce today. We're so happy to be here with Kayla Hathaway, the Coronado Law Group. Where do you hail from? Tell us about yourself before we go on. You tell us all about divorce and all the things.
Sounds great. So I grew up in St. Pete, Florida, in the west coast of Florida. My husband grew up here in New Smyrna Beach. We met in law school, so we're raising our family here. So I am a local attorney. Like you said, I work for Coronado Law Group right here on beautiful North Causeway in New Smyrna Beach.
Smyrna Beach, Florida.
We are right across from Merck's on Good Boulevard.
All right, awesome, man. What a better spot to be next to Merck's, home of New Smyrna's most famous wings. So, sounds like you've been practicing law a little bit. Has it always been family law? Where did you graduate? Like, help us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. I went to the University of South Florida for college, go Bulls, and Stetson Law for law school. Both of those are in the St. Pete, Tampa area, which is where I spent my time before I moved here to New Smyrna. I've been a practicing attorney for a little over 13 years now. I've been practicing family law only for about the past 4 years. I was in the criminal justice arena in pretty much all my time before that. But I have made a concerted to focus on family law, and that's really what I want to do is serve the families New Smyrna Beach, Edgewater, Port Orange, and just Southeast Volusia in general.
All right, good deal. So it sounds like you got a game of experience there. You know what you're talking about.
A little bit of experience.
Okay, just a skosh. So before we really kind of dive in, I know like what we want to talk about today is a term called collaborative divorce. And I'm sure most people don't know what that is, but could you explain to us what types of different divorces there are? I know before we got on camera, I always thought there was just a one size fits all, like a divorce is a divorce and that's how it goes. But apparently there's different types of divorces you can get.
Lots of different types. They do all end in the same legal conclusion, which is a divorce. There are a few types of divorce that I want to make sure that we put out there as available, because divorce is definitely not one size fits all. Just like families, divorces themselves are very individual. So first things first, it's important, really, really important, anytime you're thinking about getting divorced, to talk with a lawyer. That is as simple as having the conversation. It doesn't need to be thousands and thousands of dollars out of your pocket. So first things first, you want to just talk to a lawyer, get the lay of the land about your potential plan moving forward. Which of the types of divorces, there's a couple different types that I focus on. The first is what's called a non-contested divorce. In this divorce, the two people who are getting divorced have already decided all what I'll call the nuts and bolts of the divorce. They know how they're dividing up their property. They've already decided all the issues related to any children that they have in common. And so those people actually just need what's called a non-contested divorce. One or both can hire lawyers to just basically draw up the paperwork for them.
Make sure everything's tied up and done. So this sounds like more like a divorce for people that are being nice. They just maybe don't love each other like they used to. If they've lost the love and feeling, but they're still friends, and then they're like, hey, like we did this together and and
we can separate together. Yes. So for those people, yes, that is definitely the emotional components to it. And then also this divorce really only fits for people who have really simple finances, right? So this wouldn't be a good fit for, a couple who owns a business together and needs to split that up in some way. People who have a lot of complicated investments. Again, not a good fit for them.
Perfect.
But again, simple simple finances, able to work together really well. And then at that point, like I said, one can just hopefully hire a lawyer to draw up the paperwork, send it to the other person and their lawyer, have that lawyer look over it, and get everything done very quickly. Non-contested divorces can generally be finished in about a month.
Wow, perfect.
But, again, that requires a pretty specific situation. So then we have what's called a contested divorce. Now, this is a divorce that goes through the court process. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this particular kind of divorce. I often find that it is messier and more expensive and lacks a lot of privacy for couples. So in a contested divorce, one person's filing a petition for divorce with the courts, and then you have to go through the discovery process. There's a lot of exchange of financial information between the two, and there's a lot of opportunity for acrimony to build in this process. We already lost that love and feeling.
Right.
It's already gone. And going through a court process, having a judge come and weigh in on your decisions, having to file really private financial information with the court, having to be subject to giving testimony under oath, either at hearings or in depositions. What a nightmare of a way to end your marriage. And it really can leave a bad taste in people's mouth and really put them on a path to be very, separate and antagonistic towards each other, as they move forward in however their new family looks. Especially you have children in common, right? You're gonna need to be parenting together. It doesn't generally put people on great terms to be able to co-parent. So there's a third option for people who maybe can't come together to get the nuts and bolts of the non-contested divorce, and that's called collaborative divorce.
That's the buzzword we're looking for today, is collaborative.
This really could be any family law issue. For purposes of our conversation today, when I say divorce, I really mean a divorce, a paternity issue, a time-sharing issue, a modification issue. Basically anything that could possibly go to court as a family law issue. I'll cover, I'll use the divorce today, but it doesn't just have to apply to two people who are married and no longer want to be married. Any family law legal issue, any of these processes could apply to. So, collaborative divorce. The collaborative divorce is something that I am really trying to get the word out about here in New Smyrna Beach and the surrounding areas. So, what questions do you have about collaborative divorce that I can answer?
So, just to kind of recap that, so it sounds like we've got three pillars of divorce. You got non-contested, contested, so very combative, angry, burning cars / is that's an ang, and then hopefully not, and then the third, collaborative divorce. So before we really get into collaborative divorce, which sounds like it could really be a great way to go for a lot of couples, especially maybe with complicated finances and things like that. Where do you even start? Like, you're thinking about getting a divorce, like where do you, I'm sure it weighs on people a long time. I'm sure you don't just wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm out. You've probably been thinking about it for a few months or years even. And it's, you've got your whole life, family, kids, finances. And I'm sure a lot of people feel very alone and unsure of, and maybe even unsafe of, who do I even go to talk to? So where would be a good spot for somebody to start if they're thinking about getting a divorce?
Sure. If you're in Florida, you're welcome to call and set up an appointment with me at Coronado Law Group. So I found family law, but no matter what, talking with, if you live in Florida, a licensed Florida attorney who practices family law is really what I think is the best way to start. Google only takes you so far. So please don't take your legal advice from Google. Please do start with just, again, having a conversation with a licensed attorney is really the best way to start. And so what that attorney can do is find out from you what you do know and what maybe you need to know to start going down this road. Some things to consider, some ways to best preserve what I call the environment for settlement, okay? You really want to preserve hopefully the relationship so that, even if you're not going to stay married or if you're going to have to go through a family law legal issue, you can at least keep your eyes on the big picture. Okay, so you can hopefully resolve this issue without having a judge come in and having to bang the gavel.
Sure, and I think probably a lot of people are maybe concerned about that, of just, tit for tat and not keeping an idea of the big picture. One thing I think I'd like to mention is just because, and correct me if I'm wrong, just because they have a conversation with an attorney, that doesn't mean that the attorney files for a divorce that day and the whole thing. No. So it might be just worth having conversation, to your point, to kind of maybe get a better understanding of what things look like. You may have a change of heart. They may suggest counseling or a good therapist, marriage counselor, whatever it is. But I think there's probably a lot of people that think if I go talk to an attorney one time, that means the whole thing's done.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, that's definitely not what it means. Conversation is just a conversation. The nice thing about talking with a lawyer versus, friends or family are important for support, but in terms of getting legal advice, what's really great about talking with a lawyer, even you don't hire that lawyer, the conversation is always completely privileged, confidential. That lawyer can never tell anyone else about your conversation.
So it's not like the hairdresser telling the news, right?
Exactly. Completely confidential, that conversation. So, and brings me to, collaborative divorce. And one of the reasons that I am so passionate about it and why I want more people to know about it is because, if it's a way for people to walk through that divorce process without some of the disruptive aspects that we see in the contested model. Through the collaborative process, each person has their own lawyer, and then there are other experts, neutral experts to the process, usually a financial expert and a child specialist, who can help the entire team walk through the process and get to the end goal of a resolution of their issue. It allows you to get through the process. A resolution isn't the judge banging the gavel, but what's really nice about it is it's all done outside of court. There's only an initial filing and an ending filing, letting the court know that an agreement has been reached. All of that sensitive financial information stays out of the court file. The agreement itself actually stays out of the court file as well, which I do super crazy for our families to have all of that privacy through the collaborative process. Meanwhile, the two people going through it are supported each by an attorney and the neutral and child specialist expert if needed.
Gotcha. Okay. So I really love that, especially the privacy aspect of it. I think that's probably, something that prevents a lot of people from getting divorced too, is they don't look through all their laundry air, and especially with complicated finances, and you don't want people to really know like how much you have or who's getting what car and whatnot. Is that what I'm understanding? Because I guess if you could maybe compare a collaborative divorce versus a traditional divorce,
sure,
on what that would look like if you went the traditional route instead of collaborative.
Sure. So in order to do that, I think I first need to talk about who divorce is a good fit for. Because just kind of to recap, I think non-contested is good for people who have, a simple financial and legal stake can come to agreement. Contested can be good for some people who maybe are really close to an agreement. But other than that, if you're not really close to an agreement, my preference and recommendation is generally the collaborative model, because the people who are not close to agreement, it's generally because there are concerns about finances. There are concerns about someone else's ability to be truthful in this divorce process, or like issues. We have a lot of great business owners here in New Smyrna Beach, White Whale Real Estate, and I can't think of anyone who really wants all of their personal and business financial information out there on what's called a financial affidavit in a court file for everyone to see.
Sure.
Okay. So who the collaborative process is really good for are people who have more complex financial situations or people who have more complex emotional situations. Maybe the finances aren't super complex, but for whatever reason, you're not able to sit down and talk about it, hash out any kind of agreement. That's also good collaborative is really good for. So, the circling back to the difference between the collaborative and the contested divorce. In a contested divorce, a petition is going to be filed with the court initially. Hopefully doesn't have too much sensitive personal information, but at least has to have enough about address and assets. Any requests for alimony, things of that nature, has to be put out there in the court file. Then there has to be a response from the other side, again, containing at least some information.
And court files all public, right?
Yes.
Everybody and anybody with a computer can go in there.
Everybody with a computer.
See who's requesting what for alimony or this for that.
Exactly. And then it gets even worse, I think. Florida law requires that in most divorce cases, each side files what's called a financial affidavit. In that financial affidavit, you have to include your income, the amount of taxes you pay. You have to include a whole list of your assets and its values, your debts. It's a really, really invasive, I think, document. Serves in a purpose, which is to ensure that everyone's exchanging, the financial information that they need to. But it's incredibly invasive to put all that financial information in a file that, like you said, is available to anyone in the general public. Versus collaborative process, where again, there is full and complete disclosure of financial information. Okay, that's definitely happening. However,
but it's not like it's staying in house.
It's staying among the professional team. Again, the lawyers, the financial neutral experts, everyone in the collaborative process agrees to confidentiality through the process. There's no filing of a financial affidavit. Again, the information is exchanged. It's all out there. The collaborative team ensures accountability, but you don't have that super invasive financial information being put in a public court file. Rather, there is just a notice at the beginning. Hey, judge, the parties have elected a collaborative process. And then a notice at the end. Hey, it's all done. Collaborative is done. And there's been an agreement signed. That's it. That's all that ever goes in a court file, other than the final judgment actually declaring the divorce.
That's divorce, okay. So it leads me to a plethora of questions here. If, starting out with this one, you're thinking about getting divorced, do you go in and talk to your attorney? Do they lay out menu of options and say, well, you can go the contested route, the non-contested, or collaborative? Which do you choose?
Sure.
Is that?
That's how I do it when I meet with someone. Not only talk about the law generally as it applies to this situation, but then I also lay out, hey, here's the options. Because again, I find out that a lot of people, when they come sit down with me for the first time, they kind of think along the lines of, well, it's one size fits all. When I get the pleasure of saying, no, you really have options here, not only for how to walk through the process, but your team as you walk through that process.
Sure. Then with that, they say they choose collaborative. Does that mean then you stamp it, this is a collaborative divorce, and when you go to file it with the state, and then the judge just sees collaborative and he doesn't pay any more attention to it until it closes out? Is that
exactly that? Exactly. Yes, the judge leaves it alone completely until final notice comes in that a collaborative agreement has been reached.
To me, I keep hearing the word collaborative. This sounds like for people that are willing to work with each other. They're not spewing venom. They don't hate each other. Like, this is for people that are getting along. Is that?
It can be, but it wasn't actually designed for that. Collaborative divorce was designed for the people who are spewing venom because, yes, you're not.
This is why we're here, people.
That's who it was designed for, because attorneys who defined the collaborative process actually in the early 1990s saw that those families who were spewing venom at each other, they were leaving the contested process, draining their assets significantly, and really with just a horrible, they obviously weren't in a good place because they were getting divorced, but really in a situation where they can't work together at all. And so this was designed to bring those people to the table and help them focus on what's called shared decision making. Believe it or not, you don't have to like someone or want to stay married to them to engage in shared decision making and interest-based negotiation. So those are really the pillars of the collaborative divorce process, is the professional team helping the two people involved, again, probably spewing venom at each other, recognize that despite that venom, there are overlapping interests in this process. I mean, who doesn't want to leave their marriage with some financial security and feeling like our kids are safe? Everybody wants that. Sometimes it can just be hard for people to see when they're in a heightened emotional state like that.
Absolutely.
And so the collaborative process is really designed to help those people see, hey, there is some overlap here. There is basis, regardless of how you feel about each other emotionally, and the wrongs that have been done in the past. There isn't to move forward that doesn't involve, a judge making a decision that you have to live with, that you have very little control over. Rather, it's just helping those two people reframe, hey, you're sitting in the driver's seat here. This is your family, okay? Nobody wants to impose things on you that aren't good for your family.
Right.
So let's help the two of you work together, find out what you do have in common in terms of your interests and concerns, and slowly move forward. But yeah, it was actually designed early 1990s for the people who just were being destroyed in the court system. And so it started nationwide in the early 1990s and was finally adopted into Florida law officially in 2017.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds relatively new then, I guess, in Florida.
It is, as law goes. Yes,
Right.
that's so less than years old. It's definitely new in Florida.
So on a side note that I want to mention too, we've talked about the judges getting in play and court ring battles a little bit. We've kind of alluded to, but really statistically, what do we come up with? Is like less than 90 or less than 10% or do not go to a judge?
Exactly. So, it's generally experts in family law will say that only around 5% of all family law issues resolved by what's called a trial, which is a judge making a decision. Rather, 95% of family law cases resolved by the two people ultimately coming to agreement. So that is how most of our family law cases in Florida are resolving. That's another reason that I'm passionate about collaborative, is because ultimately you're not involving a judge, which is quite frankly where 95% of cases are going to end up anyway.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we know it started in the 1990s. It's been adopted in 2017. So how common is this? I mean, we're kind of approaching the 10 mark. We're a couple of years of shortcoming, but is it pretty common in Florida now? And since we're in Smyrna Beach County, how common is it here? Like, is it safe for how new, I guess it is, for us to be experimenting with collaborative divorce?
Sure. The answer, I can really only speak to the New Smyrna Beach and surrounding area. And I can say it's not as common as I'd like it to be. It is such a good alternative to going to court. The reason that it isn't as common is because the law is newer. And so it's just a matter of getting the word out there. And so that's why I just out there spreading the word as much as possible about the collaborative process. Is it safe? Yes, it's completely safe. And here's the collaborative process. No one is ever forced to agree to anything. No one is ever forced into ultimately coming to agreement. And again, the interest-based negotiation is ultimately based on what people can say yes to and what they can't.
Right.
Okay. And if it says a no originally, yes, that be explored in the collaborative process. That's going to be discussed. Will help the team understand why it's a no for you. But ultimately, if something's a no, no judge is ever going to be able to force that decision down your throat.
Right.
Unlike in the contested or litigation model, ultimately, if a judge makes a decision, you're stuck with the decision. That's it. That's it. You have to live with it, whether they're fit for your family or not. So,
which I can see how much more detrimental that could be, putting that in somebody else's hands. I mean, you're not wanting your spouse to make a decision, but now you're going to let a third party come in and make a decision that's probably going to really make you upset.
And I'm not saying anything that the judges don't say themselves.
Right.
Trust me, I've been there on trial day, and the judges are imploring the two people, please don't let me, a judge, make a decision about your family. A judge is really, and again, they say this, they say you are the two best people to make this decision, not a judge who knows nothing about your situation and is completely stuck making decisions only on the law.
We're going through a collaborative divorce and I just dig my heels in and I'm like, I'm not doing anymore. She's not getting anything. I'm just like, you can't believe she had the nerve to ask for my vote too. Are you kidding me? We're done. Is it possible if you're in the middle of a collaborative divorce, or can somebody throw in towel and just be like, not doing this anymore?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this goes back to no one's ever forced to agree to anything in collaborative divorce. And, sometimes it happens that the collaborative process, we call it falling apart. And so what happens at that point is then the two people involved in the divorce go to the litigation model. Yes, if people can't come to agreement in the collaborative process, then the litigation or contested process is always there, okay? So what happens is the entire professional team backs out of the case completely, and then, the two people involved have to basically start fresh, but with the, file petition and going to court.
And then it was public.
And then it goes public. But that option is always there. In the collaborative process. It's definitely not encouraged because generally at that point, a lot of time and effort has been put into the collaborative process. But, again, no one is ever forced in the collaborative process to agree to anything or resolve a case.
So it sounds like it could be just a good spot to start in general, and then just know that you've always got the fallback of contested if need be, and you're not contested if everything's simple and you have an easy life and things are simple across the board. So I'm a pretty visual person. I think most of our viewers are too. Would you be able to kind of simply walk us through the process or steps of a collaborative divorce? I come in to talk to you today. Hey, I'm thinking about getting divorced. What does that look like? How long do they take? I know we talk about privacy a little bit, which I think is probably big for a lot of people. And you alluded to it not costing as much.
Yes.
And the contested just drains family assets. So maybe just walk us through, and is it really true that it's going to cost us less money to do a collaborative divorce versus a contested divorce?
Sure. So I'll start with the financial piece of it, because that's huge. Generally, while there's no guarantees ever in an individual case, generally and statistically, collaborative, less expensive and faster, especially for those people with complicated emotional and or financial issues. It is less expensive and it is faster because every single step is in the collaborative process is guided by the team, okay? Not a judge's schedule. Judges are very busy people. They have thousands of cases on their docket. And so, you have to often wait, understandably, to have a judge resolve your issue. I mean, if a case goes to trial in the contested model, you're generally looking at 1 to 2 years at a minimum, but it can be more. Yes. Collaborative
Time and money right there.
a lot of time and money. Collaborative divorces are often finished in 6 months or less.
Wow. Okay.
Much faster. In terms of the financial aspects of it, it has been my experience that a collaborative divorce, it costs my clients about 25% of what I anticipate it would have cost them in the contested model. Huge savings.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's not a guarantee for every single case that you'll always spend 25% of what you would in a court process and that it will take 6 months. There's no guarantees in any of this ever, but again, that has been my experience with my clients, that again, it costs 25% of what it would have cost to go to court, and they're done in about 25% of the time, 25 to 50% of the time that I anticipate it would have taken them to go through the litigation route.
To me, that makes sense that you can get past whatever you're going through emotionally in the relationship of having that safety and security and knowing at the end of the day, all right, we are splitting our ways, but we still need money. We still need to get paid. And, if you're reaching out trying to hurt them, it's only hurting you back, because now that piece of the pie is getting smaller because it's being eaten up by attorney fees. Oh, you said it, not me. Fees.
Hiring separate experts.
Yeah, I mean, all the things, going to see the judge is not free.
No.
How much does it cost to get in a courtroom? So all these things are getting eaten up just because you're trying to stick it to somebody. And I think if you could maybe step back and just realize, I think the real kind of buzz or keyword you said is the shared overlapping interests that you guys have, whether it be a business, a vote, kids, finances, whatever it is. You guys are arguing over a bank account that you built together that you're going to go contest and spend all your money, and then you guys are gonna have less money anyway. So it happened. I can see how it could be much more cost effective and time effective too if you're just both agreeing, like, hey,
On shared interests.
and you don't have to be happy about it, but if it just makes sense to just save yourself money and time in the long run, of like, hey, like,
I tell clients we're looking not for something that makes you happy, but something you can hold your nose and live with.
there you go. The neck to make you happy, hold your nose and live with.
That's all you need to be able to do.
Yeah.
So, I want to make sure I answer your question too about the process itself. So, the process starts with both parties agree process. Just like no one's forced to agree to resolutions in the collaborative process, no one's actually forced to enter the collaborative process. Never forced. In my experience, I'm sitting down with someone, and then after I'm going over their options, they're saying, wow, I didn't know that collaborative process exists. I'm really interested in that. But their spouse doesn't know anything about it, and they don't feel comfortable talking to their spouse about it. It's possible to send a letter at that point. You hire that attorney for that attorney to send a letter just saying, hey, there's lots of different ways to introduce the collaborative process, believe it or not. It doesn't have to do with two people sitting down having tea and, deciding that this is just the best thing since sliced bread. But again, it starts with somehow both people agreeing to the collaborative process. And then they both had attorneys, collaboratively trained and hired at that point. The attorneys that at that point help build the professional team help bring on the financial neutral and child mental health specialist neutral if those are needed. At that point, the attorneys are also looking at what we call allied professionals. Sometimes you need more than a financial neutral and a child specialist. Sometimes we need really awesome real estate agents such as yourself, to come on board and give us ideas about options for maybe selling a home, maybe one person keeping the home and buying the other person out. I've seen collaborative options get so creative that the home itself can become a bird nest for the children, and the parents will switch in and out. So that's the kind of freedom that you have in a collaborative process. And like I said, an allied professional such as real estate agent or business valuation expert, those people can all be brought on in a neutral way to, again, help develop those common shared interests and help that family find a way to say yes to the things that are going to solve their problems and help them come to agreement.
Which makes me think of something that you're talking about with allied professionals. So whoever it is that you're bringing in, whether it be accountants, business broker, real estate broker, whatever it is, I think you need to be very thoughtful on the attorney, the family law attorney you're choosing, because I don't think that's probably a one size fits all. So being able to talk with the right attorney that has the right connections within the town to be able to do a collaborative divorce, to be able to have those allied professionals come in on board and make sure that you're not getting, the attorney might be great, but if they've got, cousin Benny that's, doing something else, he may not be the best electrician to get your house back up on the market or whatever it is. So making sure that everybody is on that same level of professional skill set across the board, I think will help with the process. So we kind of talk a little bit about who it's for, who is it not for?
Sure. So the collaborative divorce is too much firepower for the people who can come to agreement on the issues on their own. Truly this was designed for people that are going to drain their resources both financially and emotionally in going to court. Or people who have really complex financial issues. It's too much firepower for the people that have various finances and can come to agreement very simply. They just don't need the firepower in the collaborative process. Those people are a much better fit for the non-contested process.
So to break it down, it seems like the collaborative divorce can save you time and money. Two big things. The contested divorce sounds more expensive, more public,
Generally.
and a longer time period that could draw out to who knows when everybody's done fighting. So what would you say more common myths about collaborative divorce? Since we first talked, I didn't know about it, and to your point earlier, I think that's probably why you're super big in New Smyrna. It's just lack of knowledge and people knowing that this exists. When I started researching it, though, just back to the Google, it was they're only for people that have money, they're expensive, all these things I don't think necessarily are true after us, kind of talking right now. So are there myths or misconceptions that you think you should address to people so they feel more comfortable with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a myth that it is for people with a very high net worth. That is a myth. It is absolutely not for that. It is for anyone who is not going to fit into that non-contested, box really easily. That is who it is a good fit for. You don't need to have a super high net worth to do that. Again, is it more expensive than a non-contested? Yes, but at that point, if you can't get it done in a non-contested, you're probably looking at a pretty expensive process anyway. And so no, it is not for those high net worth individuals only. It can be. It certainly doesn't have to be. I believe another misconception out there is that entering the collaborative process means that you're forced into agreements. Absolutely not the case. Shared interests, decision making. No one's ever forced to say yes to anything that they're truly not in agreement with. There may be some discussion about it through that process. But again, no one's forced into agreeing to anything in the collaborative process that they're truly not in agreement with.
We mentioned that a little earlier too, is that if you just decide to stop at any point, you can walk away. Yeah.
You can absolutely walk away. And then the third myth that I have encountered is that collaborative process is just mediation. It's just mediation, which is not the case. So mediation is an opportunity in the contested process for people to come together, meet with a neutral third party who helps them, potentially resolve, carry their offers back and forth, and hopefully reach a resolution at the end of that. However, you generally only do that after you're in the contested process. So you've already done those really invasive court pleadings and financial affidavits, and so that stuff has already happened, and then at that point is generally when you're engaging in the mediation. And mediations at most in family law generally last 1 day, okay? So that sometimes can't be enough time for that shared decision making and overlapping to really happen. Rather for the collaborative process, and that's pretty exhausting too. While a day sometimes is too much and not long enough,
Right.
all at the same time. And so the collaborative process takes place through 2-hour meetings. These meetings are set generally anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks apart. And at that meeting, the collaborative team just go issue by issue in terms of things that need to be decided. And again, every 3 to 4 weeks, you're really moving at a good clip to get this done.
Sure.
So it's very different from mediation, and that's definitely that I want to make sure I clear up.
And mediation sounds exhausting. I mean, you're trying to get a list of 20 items taken care of in a day. I see how you're, long enough, too long, but not long enough on just the amount of energy and emotion that you're trying to cram in one day.
Yes.
Now, honestly, I think you're probably gonna leave more pissed off than you are. You're already contested. Now you got a mediator trying to come to things that you already haven't agreed with. And it's like, we're trying to get it fixed in a day. Like you've been trying to work on your marriage for the past
However long,
and now we're trying to fix it all in a day and split, everything. That just doesn't make sense to them, but
mediation in all cases, and it generally is very good once you're already in a contested process. It's good to come to mediation at that point, but in the collaborative process, there's a way to hopefully avoid some of that.
Right.
It's not the same, and it's just not the same.
Well, it sounds smoother. You do it, a couple issues at a time, 2 or 3 hours.
Just a break.
Then you got a few weeks to kind of simmer down on it.
Exactly.
Like, this is it. All right, we're moving on. Hold your nose up. Oh, that's sort of.
Can I really look at that? Can I really look at that? Hold my nose. Let me think about it for a few.
Very sure. All right. So before we go, and thank you for your time. We really a wealth of information here. What are some things that you definitely and pay attention right now? This may be the most important part for you guys not to do. Like we had a conversation with you and Mike a couple weeks ago on people bringing in business contracts on signed bar napkins. I know we mentioned that, they're trying to do things before the fact. I think there was somebody that signed, they created their own prenup on own, and then now they're trying to get attorneys in after and unwind everything. So what should a couple things you should definitely not do?
Sure. So legal documents should be drafted by attorneys. But I understand it's an investment. I understand that, and that is hard for people to swallow and see value in. Having an attorney draft your legal documents, such as your divorce settlement agreement, is so important, because you can Google and form online and everything's fine until it's not. And once those agreements are signed off on by a judge, they can't just be changed because someone says, oops, I made a mistake. That's not really what we meant. And so it is so important to have an attorney draft your important legal documents. And this is my little soapbox that I'm going to stand up. Me being a family law attorney, I'm thinking about all of your documents in your family law case, especially your settlement agreements. Not just having an attorney review, having an attorney draft. Because it's really hard for an attorney to review and correct something that a non-attorney has just brought in and said, hey, can you look at this? That's generally not effective. Me personally, I don't do that. I say, look, you can hire me to draft, but I'm generally not going to try to just correct or review something that someone else has printed off the line.
Yep.
That goes for your estate planning documents, your business documents, such as your operating agreements and partnership agreements. So that really goes for any important legal document. Please, I implore you, I promise you it's worth it to hire an attorney to draft those things for you, to ensure what you're intending with these documents will actually be carried out, because you won't know there's an issue until there's an issue.
Yep. And then that 1,000, whatever it is, becomes so
40, 50, $60,000. Exactly.
and the scheme of what it's actually going to do. You know, two things just kind of out on that. You've got health problems, you go to a doctor, and you go to MD a little bit, but eventually, you know, you're not going to operate on yourself. So go to the professional and have a switch in your mindset of, you mentioned it's an investment to get them drafted. Most people, I think they're looking at it, it's a cost and it's an expense. It's an investment. It's not an expense. It becomes an expense when you do it on your own, and then you come to Kayla after the fact and fix my 50,000, 100+ mistake shares. You know, want to spend a little bit extra. So, anything else other than don't draft your own documents?
Please don't draft your own documents. No, I just really appreciate your time and your professionalism. You know, White Whale is such a great pillar in our community.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
I'm so grateful that you sat down to talk with me and help me spread the good word on Florida.
We're happy to be here with you, and hopefully this helped you guys at home. Let us know what you think about divorce, I guess, in general. If you've gone through collaborative divorce, if you recommend it. Again, you mentioned you are on the North Causeway. We're at Coronado Law. We'll put all your information in the description below. Anything else to get a hold of you?
That's it.
Okay. All right. They're easy to find. We're easy to find. If you can't find them, call us. We'll get you in touch. Hope you have a great weekend. Thank you guys for staying tuned, and we'll see you in next week's video.
Yay.
Nice.
I'm on. One take.
One take.